Hey guys, today we are wandering into a sticky, spice-laced corner of medieval life that rarely gets the spotlight: dessert. That is right. We are digging deep into the honey-soaked trenches of history to find out what counted as a treat before the invention of cupcakes, chocolate bars, or even forks. From tooth-shattering marzipan to custards kissed with rosewater, we are tasting our way through the desserts that delighted, and sometimes endangered, the medieval palate. But fair warning, this is not sugar plums and gingerbread. It is more like almond cement and fermented fruit, with a side of questionable medical theory. You probably won't survive this, but if you do, you will have stories for the next banquet. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. You lean back in a creaky wooden chair, eyeing the trestle table in front of you. It is the 14th century, and someone has just laid down a honey cake the size of your fist and the density of a throwing stone. There is no sugar, at least, not the kind you are thinking of. Cane sugar is still a rare import from the East. More expensive than gold in some places. So what sweetens your dessert? Honey. Lots of honey. Honey in your cakes, honey in your wine, honey in your mead, honey even in the medicines they rub on your gums when said honey rots your teeth. You take a bite. The honey cake crumbles slightly but quickly becomes chewy, sticky, clinging to your molars like a dental insult. It is spiced with cinnamon and clove. Both high-status imports that scream I have money to burn and molars to sacrifice. You look around the hall. The other nobles dig in with less caution. Some of them are already on their second slice. One knight jokes that it is worth the pain, and holds up a dagger. His utensil of choice. You follow suit. There are no dessert spoons. There are no dessert forks. There is bread, your hands, and whatever cutlery is already on your belt. Historians still argue whether desserts were served at the end of every meal or only on feast days. What is clear is that when they did appear, they were not casual. Medieval sweets were deliberate status symbols. Honey was not cheap. Almonds were not local. Spices did not grow in English fields. So even the smallest dessert whispered, I can afford to be indulgent. But not all sweetness came in fancy wrapping. You reach for a preserved figure. It has been stewed in red wine and dusted with crushed anise. The texture is oddly soft, almost jammy, and the taste is something between mulled wine and backyard syrup. You pop it in your mouth and immediately wish you would eaten it slower. It is not just good. It is confusingly good. Is it food? Is it medicine? Is it witchcraft? A monk sitting near the fire swirls his goblet and offers a cheery, fruit is God's candy. You nod. Sticky, fingered, and glance again at the half-eaten honey cake. The monk is chewing dried pear now. He has 3 teeth. Next to the honey cake is something flatter, crumblier, and studded with dried currants. A spice biscuit. It is dense, oily, and keeps for months, ideal for travel, war, and famine. One bite tells you it has been baked with lard. You keep chewing anyway. You have officially had dessert. It may not look like much, but you have just consumed ingredients from 4 countries and 2 continents, without leaving your seat. And you are only getting started. The second course of dessert, yes, that is a thing when you are a medieval noble, is arriving in waves of stickiness, steam, and mild danger. A platter lands before you like a dare. It holds a translucent jelly, wobbling slightly, its blush, pink color catching the firelight. You blink. Is it Dutch shaped like a fish? Of course it is. This is aspic. A savory cousin to your modern gelatin, except this one's spiced wine set with animal collagen. It jiggles with confidence and moral ambiguity. You scoop a bit onto your trencher. It tastes like wine, clove, and maybe regret. Historians still argue whether dishes like this were meant as delicacies or medicine. Either way, you chew it politely, then move on. Next up, marzipan. Not marzipan as we know it, this is the medieval version. A thick, sweet almond paste hardened into a brick, flavored with rosewater, and carved into the shape of a lion, a castle, or well, whatever your cook had time for. This one is a crude peacock. You bite off its head. It is both delicious and mildly violent. The noble to your left boasts that his cook once molded an entire nativity scene out of marzipan. You nod, because that sounds expensive and entirely on brand for the upper class. Across the table, a lady picks delicately at a gilded sugar cube. Yes, real gold leaf, set atop candied fennel root. Dessert here is not just food. It is theater. You reach for a small dish of preserved cherries. They have been soaked in hypocras. That sweet, spiced wine you had at lunch, and now they are clinging together like drunken cousins. They taste like spice and summer and memory. And then, because you thought you were safe, someone offers you a dragée. The medieval dragée is not the pastel wedding favor you are thinking of. It is a hardened sugar ball, often hiding something chaotic inside: peppercorns, anise, even fennel seeds. You bite. Your jaw nearly cracks. The taste floods your mouth like perfume and fire. You cough politely and mutter exquisite, as tradition demands. A fringe detail: some lords paid sugar artists to craft entire sugar castles, hunting scenes, or holy visions. These were not always meant to be eaten. Sometimes, they were paraded out like sculptures, admired, then crumbled ceremonially. Sugar was prestige in powdered form. You glance again at the jellyfish. It has deflated slightly. Like it too has accepted its fate. By now, your fingers are sticky. Your dagger is glazed in almond paste. And the steward has passed around linen towels soaked in rosewater so you can refresh. You blot your lips and sit back, marveling not just at the ingredients, but the ambition. Medieval dessert is not casual. It is not tossed off indulgence. It is engineered elegance, where food doubles as status, survival, and sometimes satire. Even your hard little sugar ball said something: I control luxury. I can sweeten the world. You eye a final slice of marzipan, then decide to spare your molars. There is still more day to survive. And rumor has it the custards come with stories. You are barely recovered from the jellyfish-shaped wine aspic when the next treat arrives, not on a tray, but in a reliquary-shaped box, carried by a solemn page with the reverence of a priest, handling a saint's tooth. Inside, a candied tart sculpted like a miniature cathedral. The server bows. You are not sure if you are supposed to eat it or confess to it. Welcome to the spiritual side of medieval dessert, where sugar meets salvation, and your sweet tooth just might get you into heaven. You take a cautious bite. It is a pastry crust filled with almond milk custard and dried dates, shaped into little cloisters and dusted with ground saffron. A delicate crunch gives way to a warm, spiced center. It tastes like holiness and butter. A friar seated nearby chuckles. They say Saint Catherine once broke her fast with a fig tart so pure, it converted a heretic on the spot. You raise an eyebrow. He grins. Might be apocryphal. Historians still argue whether many of these so-called miracle desserts were consumed as sacred symbols, or simply as fashionable menu items dressed in piety. Whatever the truth, they are elaborate. You spot sugar doves perched on a spiced cake. One noblewoman slices open a gingerbread bishop and eats the head first. No one flinches. Back in the kitchen, your cook once crafted an entire Last Supper out of preserved quince. It melted during a warm winter feast, and was quietly renamed the Weeping Supper. You ate the Apostle Bartholomew. Another pageboy passes around holy wafers, thin, crisp sweets printed with saintly images using carved wooden stamps and edible inks. You take one gingerly. The face of Saint Hubert gazes at you from the surface. You chew reverently. Medieval diners often blurred the lines between celebration, commemoration, and culinary cosplay. A dessert was not just the end of a meal, it was a metaphor. A sugar-stuffed dove meant peace. A honey-soaked harp meant divine harmony. A tart shaped like a shield, God's protection, served with nutmeg. You are offered a slice of something called angel's marrow. It is not what it sounds like, probably. It is a frothy mousse made from whipped egg whites, almond milk, and honey, served chilled over crushed ice hauled in from a monastery cellar. You taste it. It is delicate, ephemeral, and entirely impractical. A noble at the far end of the table recites a poem dedicated to a sugared pear he once ate during Lent. A squire dozes in his seat, chin glistening with syrup. Someone sneezes, hard, and two sugar doves lose their heads. There is something surreal about it all. You are surrounded by gold, spice, fruit, and frosting while half the countryside is chewing bark or boiling shoe leather. This is not just indulgence. It is edible power. Every sugar-crusted saint is a flex. You nibble a sliver of cinnamon, glazed quince, the smell triggering something between nostalgia and sinus burn. You are not sure what is next. But you know it will be sweet, complicated, and possibly shaped like a holy relic. You retreat from the table, robes heavier, stomach louder. Outside, the wind shifts and the air smells faintly of wood smoke and wet hay. The sun is fading fast behind the towers. And a bell rings from the chapel, low and solemn. The day should be winding down, but in the kitchens, heat, bustle, and butter are very much alive. The cook is preparing something new. You are told it is a medicinal dessert. That is how he justifies it, anyway. It is a poached pear soaked in syrup made from red wine, sage, vinegar, and 3 kinds of spice. You raise an eyebrow. He says it is good for digestion and moods of the spleen. You take a bite. It is tender, almost melting, the sweetness tempered by something herbal and oddly bitter. Somehow it works. Somehow it does not. You are not entirely sure. During the worst years of plague, meals like this became strange prayers in themselves, offerings to health, indulgence masked as medicine. Historians still argue whether sugar was truly viewed as therapeutic or just a convenient excuse to gorge yourself during apocalyptic times. But either way, you can't deny it helped morale. The monk sitting beside you sips something steaming. It is not wine. It is a custard, drinkable, spiced, and unervingly pale. He claims it comes from a monastery that survived 3 plague waves without losing a single friar. We credit the eggs, he says, deadpan. You nod respectfully. More dishes arrive. Some look like pudding. One looks like it has already been eaten once. You push that one aside. But a shallow bowl of something called blancmange draws your curiosity. It is not the pink wobbly stuff your modern mind conjures. This version is a savory, sweet blend of shredded chicken, almond milk, rice, and sugar. It is food from the in-between, a dish of comfort that crosses the line between dessert, convalescence, and edible mystery. You take a bite. It is gentle, creamy, sweet and savory in confusing ratios. The kind of food you could eat when sick or mourning or just very, very tired. You look up, and the others seem to agree. The room is quieter now. The candlelight's softer. A page boy snoozes near the hearth. And just when you think the desserts are done, the cook wheels in a tray of what he calls pestilence rolls. Hollow pastries filled with dried rose petals, honey, and vinegar, glazed walnuts. To ward off bad air, he says. You take one, mostly for the warmth. It crumbles slightly in your hand. And the first bite is surprisingly elegant. There is something comforting about these sweets. They are survival in the form of syrup and spice. The plague has taken half the village. The bishop coughed all through Mass. But here, in this small, flickering chamber, you taste something like hope. Even if it is baked into a rose petal roll. You sip a bit more of the monk's custard. He does not offer. You do not ask. Tonight, sharing dessert is practically communion. The torches burn lower now, casting long, syrup-colored shadows across the stone walls. Supper has come and gone, and still, dessert arrives, not as performance this time, but as ritual. The hall is quieter. Bellies are full. Belts are secretly loosened. A few retainers snore gently near the embers. You are still upright, barely, but ready for the final act. A servant approaches with steady hands, bearing a golden tray and a single tart, round, glossy, and trembling slightly in its dish. It is a custard tart, pale and soft, flecked with crushed almonds and scented with rosewater. The smell hits first. Floral, buttery, warm. It reminds you of laundry drying in the sun and something faintly funereal. You take a bite. It is perfect. Sweet but not cloying. The rose sneaks in on the aftertaste. The custard is delicate, barely set, and the crust flakes like good intentions. You chew slowly, reverently. This is a tart for endings. Across the table, an old knight nods into his goblet, eyes half-lidded. A priest murmurs a prayer over the fire. The steward pours warm spiced milk into small clay bowls and passes them around. You cradle yours between your hands. It smells like nutmeg, clove, and something faintly medicinal. Like every comfort you have ever been prescribed. You sip. It is thick and soothing, coating your throat in warmth and nostalgia. For a brief moment, you forget the trenchers, the lamprey, even the custard. You are just a tired human holding a bowl of warm milk in a cold world. Historians still argue whether this final milk drink was part of the formal meal or simply a digestive ritual practiced by certain regions. What is clear is that it worked, at least emotionally. After an evening of jelly castles, almond relics, and holy marzipan, this is the first thing that does not feel like a challenge. You glance at your empty trencher. Now wiped mostly clean. The spiced milk settles in your belly like a lullaby. You rise, slowly. Your knees complain. Your belt is hanging on by stubborn dignity. You bow your head as the evening prayer is muttered, not because you are devout, but because you are full. The fire pops once more. A candle gutters near the window. Outside, The stars scatter like spilled sugar across the inky sky. You step out into the night with one final, candied hazelnut tucked into your pocket. Your stomach is heavy. Your breath smells like honey, almond, and wine. Your body aches, gently. But you have done it. You have eaten your way through an entire day of medieval desserts. From the honey-laden breakfast bites to the pious almond, saints of supper. Tomorrow will come with more trenchers, more custard, maybe even another rose petal roll. But tonight, dessert was not just indulgence, it was story, ceremony, and something close to comfort. The feast fades. The hall dims. And as you step away, the taste of rose and warm milk still lingers on your tongue like a whispered blessing. The fire behind you crackles low, and the hush of sleep settles over the stones. One last breath, one last memory, sweet enough to outlast the dark.